Hello, today I'm so excited to have Linda Jämsén on the Awakened Feminine podcast. Linda is an American expat writer-musician living in Helsinki and author of Odyssey of Love, a memoir of seeking and finding. And I know she's got so much love and wisdom to share with us today. Do I have you there, Linda?
Yes, hello, 𝐋𝐢𝐬𝐧. Nice to see you.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the Awakened Feminine podcast. Linda, I want to ask you before we get started into our conversation, because I know there's lots that we can talk about in this episode. Can you give me your definition of what you think? Can you give me a definition of an awakened feminine?
Yes, I was thinking about the meaning of this, and I thought immediately of the quote by Pablo Picasso, who said, "The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away."
Mm,
So, expanding on that idea, I would say that an awakened feminine is someone who understands deep down that they have a unique, special gift, that they want to explore what that is. It may take years to find out, but that once they discover what it is, they feel compelled to share it with others and to help others find their true gift as well. So
wow.
you don't have to be a Picasso, you don't have to be a Jane Austen, but just that you have this like compulsion to know and understand yourself better and to help other people.
Yeah. Wow, that's so beautiful. I've got full goosebumps going on. That's such a beautiful definition. That so is. I want to ask you then, talking about gifts, have you found your gift? And what, if you don't mind sharing what your gift is, that'd be really great.
Well, interestingly, yesterday was Giving Tuesday, which is celebrated around the world. It's a philanthropic day where a lot of nonprofits reach out to people and other organizations asking for money. And I know this because for years I worked as a professional fundraiser when I lived in the States. So that was before I moved to Europe 20 years ago. But I realized years ago that I had this special knack for asking people for donations. And what happened was, what inspired this whole career was that when I was 11 years old, my mother learned that a man in our rural community in upstate New York had a very serious illness and that he needed a kidney transplant. So she decided, she was a stay-at-home mom, and she decided to turn our backyard into a fairgrounds.
That's
So we
awesome.
had games and we had dress up and we had like food stalls and maybe even some animals and prizes. And I thought it was a wonderful event. I was 11 and my friends were there all helping. And I thought it was a huge success. And I never heard anything else but that it was a success. Well, a few years ago, I was going through my storage unit and came across the article that the local journalist had written, and there was a photo of me and my sisters with my mother and friends. It said that we had raised $68.
Yeah.
And I have to say that my heart kind of sank because I thought, my mother, with all her good intentions, trying to help this man save his life. At the end, she raised $68, not 68,000, but 68, which obviously couldn't, buy a kidney or prolong his life. But the message there was that she was just so excited and her enthusiasm was catching, and it stayed with me a long time that this is what you do. You don't have to do something huge. She was not a celebrity raising money for breast cancer or whatever, but she did something small in her community. And that stayed with me. And then years ago, I guess it was in the 90s, a friend of mine had AIDS and I went to work for him first as a volunteer. And he had modeled his organization after Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Mm.
So people who had HIV and AIDS would ask for like a last wish. And I was the wish fairy. So I had to go out and get and fulfill their wishes. So we had wishes, for example, families wanted to take the kids to Disneyland, or someone wanted to take their family out to dinner locally in Boston, where we were, sewing machine, art supplies. So it ran the gamut. But
Mhm.
the point is that I had a real knack for this. people wanted to give me stuff. And we got a lot of donations in products, items, and also in money. And in our second year of the organization, Goldie Hawn came, and she was our special guest for a sit-down dinner of over 1,000 people. So this was an undiscovered gift that I had no idea that I had, and it led to a 10-year career. And even though I'm not in the career anymore, I continue to fundraise and I continue to help. And in Finland a few years ago, I hosted an event for refugees from Middle East during the crisis here. And because I'm a musician, and I learned that quite a few had left their homelands without their instruments. They had to leave everything behind. So I raised money. They gave a concert and we raised money to buy instruments. So I just do whatever I can in a small way, which is like what my mother did. So I just wanted to bring up this story because it's one gift that I've had, and it was dormant many, many years, and it still is pretty dormant, but now and then it comes, and I love to organize events and I love to do fundraisers, but my focus for the last many years has been on writing.
Yeah. Wow, that's such a beautiful story. And your mom is awesome, like, turning to even have the idea to turn your backyard into a, fairground. And, that kind of stemmed your love of, helping people, and then discovering your gift of being able to just pull things together for people in need. That's just so beautiful. Yeah.
She went on to become a social worker and worked directly with people. But for me, I didn't go that route. So I went a different route to help people. So I guess that's my point about being an awakened feminine. It's helping people however you can, in whatever small way. And maybe you have, for example, maybe you're just a really good listener, or maybe you have a soothing voice and you can read to people who are blind. I mean, it doesn't have to be an extraordinary gift. It can just be something that you have that maybe you don't even realize, but hopefully you try to explore and you discover it.
Yeah,
and you,
definitely.
And you share it. That's the most important thing, to share it.
Yeah. What was that moment that you discovered that that was your gift? Like, obviously there's people that that can just go around and get people to donate. I've done the I mean, I myself have been volunteer before, and you kind of go around and ask people, and it's hard. It's a hard slog. People don't want to give you their money. But I mean, when was that point where you went, oh, that's my natural gift? Because I mean, obviously everyone has different gifts. So when did you kind of just have that go, oh, I'm really good at this, I'm going to go and pursue a career?
Yeah, well, I think it was while I was volunteering, and people just said yes all the time. I mean, I really didn't get any rejection that I can remember, or any big rejection. And I got such a rush from it. That was the other thing. I felt like I was in this groove, like this giving groove. And I felt so fulfilled and so satisfied. And then I got such great feedback from the people we were helping. We got wonderful letters, thank you letters. The woman who I gave the sewing machine to made me a pillow, which I still have. And the guy that I gave art supplies to made me a painting.
Yeah.
So I just, when this happens, it just like melts your heart, and you feel that you're just doing something right,
Yeah.
And of course, I couldn't stop them from ultimately getting very sick, and leaving this earth. But for a short time, my friend and I, Patrick was his name, we could help them, the quality of life a little bit. So that was really addicting. That was really like an addicting feeling, that feeling you could help in some way.
Yeah.
So, and so that was a wonderful feeling. And then I went on to help elders. And then later on, it was, families with children. So it was about a 10-year career while I lived in America, and then I lived overseas.
That's so beautiful. It really is. And I really feel when you give, it makes you happier than when you receive. And I mean, obviously, if you give and then you get something in return for you giving, it's just like, wow, that was, So I was just getting a bit emotional. It was so beautiful. I want to just say, like you were saying, that when you found out that your mum just raised $68 instead of this massive sum.
I never would have guessed.
Yeah, but the joy and that you brought to all the people that came,
I
that's the
know.
giving
And he was
part as
very
well.
grateful. Yeah. And
Yeah,
he was very grateful
yeah,
for, for that she tried and that, there was this interest to help. I think that's the big thing too,
yeah,
is that someone cares and they're trying.
yeah. And I do think that's such a big difference because, a lot of people go around and think that no one cares about them. So even though monetary wise, it wasn't what was expected, but, just
Yeah.
knowing that people care, I think that beats anything, right?
I think that's really important. And I think in these dark times now with the pandemic, at least continuing where I live, like
Mm,
really important to reach out. Like even if you can't be together, it's important to keep like fundraising throughout Christmas time, helping people who need food or whatever you can do, just
yeah,
help out. I think it's really important.
yeah, definitely. And staying connected, because people are so isolated, because they can't go out and everything else. It's a big drain on their mental health and emotional health, which is so important for the physical health, because when you're emotionally and mentally unwell, it affects your physical health. Yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely, definitely.
Yeah. I want to ask you, because you're from New York,
Yes.
can you talk a bit about why you moved all the way to Finland?
Well, okay, so I lived in New York till I was about 20. Then I went to Bard College, upstate New York. So I lived like Long Island, New York City for a while, upstate New York. Then I moved to Boston after college. What happened was I was working in the fundraising business, enjoying my career, and I had been married. I had lived for a short time in LA, and I had been married. It was a disaster. I won't get into it, but got divorced and I moved to Boston and I began a relationship with I'll call him Hank. He's Hank in my call him Hank in my memoir.
Yeah.
And we were together quite happily for about 7 years. And then I was 41 years old. It was my 41st birthday was coming, and I fully expected a marriage proposal because the year before he'd given me a ring, but it was a friendship ring. So I thought that this year I would get the real thing, a real engagement ring. So he was calling my parents and calling my friends, and there were these like whispering conversations happening that I could hear in the hallway. And I wondered, oh, something's afoot. Like, what will it be? And I truly expected this. Well, it turned out he was just phoning them and asking them all to send gifts for my birthday, like to send a card, to
Mm.
send a gift because we were going away and he would bring the gifts with him. So that's what it was. So it turned out that while I appreciated that gesture, I was really kind of devastated. And a lot of very difficult discussions ensued during which it became really clear like this wasn't going to happen, like
Mm.
ever. Like he just didn't want to get married. And I was at a crossroads because I was 41. And even though I didn't have this burning desire to be a mother, I wanted to explore it with somebody
Mm.
because I didn't want to feel like at the end of my life that I hadn't really thought about it and in detail, in depth with somebody. And he just wanted no part of that. So what happened was I discussed this dilemma with my best friend Jenny in Boston, and she made it really clear. She said, well, if Hank isn't willing after 7 years, 10 or 15 probably won't be enough either. And it hurt to hear that, but I knew that was really the truth in my heart. So she recommended I see her psychic. And at first I thought this was a lot of hocus pocus. But then I remembered that my parents had met through a psychic reading. What happened was my mother, when she was 20 years old, had been in this frustrating relationship and she went to see a tea leaf reader. And when the woman read her tea leaves, the letter J was there and the tea leaf. And she said to my mother, you're going to leave this man, but you're going to meet someone with the letter J, the initial J, who has good hearts for you. I remember my mother always said that. And you will be married 6 months later. And that's exactly what happened. My mother left her old boyfriend and married Joseph 6 months later. So I thought about that story, which my mother used to always tell. And I thought, okay, well, if it worked for my parents, I'll give it a try. So my friend Jenny set it up for my birthday. It was a birthday gift. And I went, and the woman I went to see, her name was Angelica. And her home was like extraordinary. It wasn't at all the home of a psychic that I had envisioned, but there were like Bibles on the shelf and religious icons and, you know, crucifixes on the wall. And she was actually a devout Catholic, which I hadn't realized. But I felt immediately more at ease there.
Mm.
But then she said some things that seemed really like totally crazy to me. The first thing she said was that I would be moving to Europe, which I didn't want to hear because I wanted to hear that Hank and I would get married, you know, and live in Boston. And then the second thing she said was that she saw me teaching in a classroom in front of people. And that made me cringe because I hated public speaking. I was terrified of public speaking. So immediately I thought, this woman, you know, she lost the plot. She's not on the map, you know, this is not happening. But then she said that she saw musical instruments around me. And as a musician, a lapsed musician, I should say, that really perked up my ears. So that was interesting. And then she also said that I would reconnect with my Eastern Europe roots because my father's family was from Eastern Europe. So then I thought, aha, okay. But then getting back to Hank, she said he was not the one, but one was waiting for me in Europe. And when I asked her to describe the one, she said that he was a tall man with glasses. That's all she said. A tall man with glasses. He would not be coming into my life for a while. But in the meantime, I would have this adventure. I would be teaching. I would be involved in music somehow, and I would be traveling, meeting other guys. But eventually I would meet him, and he was the one. And she said that a Russian icon would bring us together. And that was very curious because my grandmother had been Russian Orthodox. So it's like all these things she said, and I was wondering, So I left there very, very confused. And I went back to see Jenny, and, you know, I said to her, well, even if I thought this was a good idea, how could I ever afford it? And she had an answer ready for me. She thought I should ask my parents for help, which I eventually did. But long story short, they supported me. They gave their blessing. I broke up with Hank. It took about 6 months because, you know, really, I was torn. You know, you have this instinct or you feel deeply like that's the right thing to do, but you don't want to because we were happy, you know, and I could have continued, but there was a big part of me saying like, I don't want to compromise because if I compromise and I stay, someday I will really, really resent him. You know, I didn't want to be this bitter older person someday. So I left, and my whole life changed like instantly. I got on the plane and I went into a teacher training program, and I was teaching, believe it or not.
What made you decide to teach since you hated public speaking?
I know. Well, it's interesting because I thought of, well, what could I do to support myself, you know? And my father was a professor, and so he was very supportive of the teaching, you know, angle. And so I researched it, and I thought, well, okay, if I go into this teacher training program, where you get up and you give sample lessons in front of other trainees, so it's not so high pressure. And then plus I'm teaching to people who don't really understand much English. So that was another thing. It's not like being a professor of literature at Harvard, you know, it was like teaching Hungarians who, you know, basic English or conversational English. So it wasn't so terrifying. And I got over it, and I really enjoyed it actually. And then when I first moved to Finland, I was teaching here as well. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get back to That's awesome. Let's get back to your story about moving to, and then your adventures of finding your tall man with glasses.
Yes. So what happened was I was teaching there, and I also wound up volunteering at the Liszt Academy of Music. And Franz Liszt, the pianist-composer, was a musical idol of mine. So I wound up meeting someone on the board there, and I wound up fundraising for them as a volunteer. So that was wonderful. So I was volunteering, teaching, I joined a chorus, was back involved in music. I was accompanying a singer. So life was wonderful. And I had been on some dates. I had encountered some tall men with glasses, but no one really appropriate, let's just say. Either they lived at home or they had a wife or some sort of double life, it seemed.
Yeah.
You have to look to find out. But so I was getting, I started realizing, well, maybe Angelica had been right about so many things, but this guy is just evading me, like I'm not meeting him. So what happened was, at the very end of my story, Odyssey of Love, I'm packing up my stuff in Budapest, and my father asks me to go to Vilnius, Lithuania, to research his family history. And I was going, I think I was moving back to the States 2 weeks later. So I said, yes, I will go. So one last trip in Europe. Okay. So I go to the travel agent and I said, okay, I'd like to fly to Poland and then take a bus to Vilnius. And she said, no, don't do that. She said, fly to Helsinki. It's on sale this week. You'll save $100.
Mm.
So I said, okay. And then she explained how to go from Helsinki to Vilnius. Okay. And I thought, okay, I've never been to Scandinavia, but I'll fly to Helsinki.
Yeah.
So long story short, I flew to Helsinki and almost immediately met the tall man with glasses. And I won't give away the ending, but let's just say, like, during this whirlwind time, I went to Vilnius, came back, we had our very first date. And it was during this time that the Russian icon was revealed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so there was a Russian icon, and it may be, when you read the end of the story, you might think it's one icon, but it's something else. But but it was there. I mean, and then I realized, like, wow, like right at the last minute, I met this person, and tall man with glasses, and it was interesting because when I met him, I was feeling so free. I was just feeling, I'm leaving Europe, but it's okay. And I had this wonderful adventure, and I just felt satisfied. Like I wasn't disappointed. I just felt joy. And I think maybe he picked up on that when he saw me, because the interesting thing is, when he tells the story, he's a shy Finnish man, that he said he felt compelled to come over and talk to me, but that's not his nature at all.
Yeah.
So he was really timid, and he was nervous about his English skills, and so, but somehow it worked. But yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I so want to read your story.
It's a powerful, happy ending. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a powerful ending, and it's a happy ending, and I wanted it to end. So I ended it like right at the right moment. Yeah.
Yeah. How long were you in Europe for?
I've been now 20 years here.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I should have been more specific. How long were you, like, you got to Europe, and how long before you met your husband?
Oh, okay. I met Otto about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
After moving to Budapest. Yeah.
So
most of my trip has been in Helsinki.
Yeah. I want to ask you, because you said that when you got to Helsinki, you just felt this, you were free, you kind of feel like, yeah, I've done everything that I wanted to do. I'm ready to go. But, during that time before, were you constantly on the lookout for that tall man with no?
Not really. I would say I was like in the groove. Like I was just going along, these opportunities presented themselves, like Liszt Academy, then they invited me to sing, and then we went to tour in Jerusalem. And so I just kind of followed, I just sort of went where it took me. And I felt, and like I said, there were love disappointments along the way. At the end of the story, I met a very tall man with glasses in Amsterdam, and I really thought it was fun. I truly did think he was the one.
Yeah.
But I won't go into what happens, but then it's very clear he's not. And I actually called Angelica, and she gave me her, the psychic, and she gave me her feedback on what she thought was happening, which was probably correct, although we lost contact and I don't really know.
Yeah.
So I just thought, okay, forget him, forget these other people I met. But I had this wonderful musical immersion. I met great friends. I have still wonderful friends there, and I traveled because remember, I thought this was my last, fling in Europe. This was it.
Mm,
I wouldn't be going back for years. So I traveled as much as I could, like Germany, Poland,
yeah.
Belgium, Amsterdam. I just went wherever I could in a short time because I thought I wouldn't be going back. So I was very satisfied,
Yeah.
and like I said, when I met my future husband, I think he picked up on that vibe, you know.
Mm.
I was He said I was like glowing. He just saw me and I was glowing, and he thought I have to go and speak to that person.
It's like in the movie where you watch the scene where the shy person, like the shy guy, goes up to the girl because she's just this like angel in his eyes.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So we
yeah.
don't understand it, but and I had been taking a picture, and I actually saw him through the viewfinder because he
Mm,
was wearing a red raincoat, a light raincoat, and I was like, oh. And then I looked at him, and I was like, oh. And then I sort of like we were looking at each other across the way and everything. This is in downtown Helsinki by the
yeah.
harbor. So, and then my boat was leaving like 20 minutes later. So we had very, very short time to get to know each other and to know that we wanted to get together again.
Yeah. That's such a cool story. I love it. I love it so much.
Thank you for asking. It's always great to tell the story, and because I think it's hopeful. And that's another thing, I had been working on this many years on and off.
Mm,
But then when the pandemic hit, I thought, okay, this is it. Now I'm finally going to publish it. And I
mm,
decided to self-publish. It would just go quicker. And I'm so happy I did. And what's been really like satisfying and fulfilling is that a lot of women who are writing me, telling me how much they enjoyed the story and it gave them hope and they were in a situation like mine and now they think differently. And
mm.
so that's been really great, really
Yeah.
rewarding.
Yeah. That's awesome. I want to jump back quite a bit. Like when you decided, oh, I guess when you found out from Angelica that Hank's not the one, and it took you 6 months before
Yes,
you
yes,
actually ended the relationship. And you were saying that you knew in your heart that
yes,
um that you needed to leave, but that
yes.
that the ego, the stubborn side of you is like, but I've invested so much in this relationship.
I
um,
know, that's painful. It was
yeah.
painful.
And I guess I want to ask, maybe you can share with our listeners, like for people that are in that kind of circumstance where they feel in their heart that
Uh,
this isn't the right relationship, but you've been there for so long and you just don't want to let it go because it's not like you're not happy, it's just comfortable. What
that's it.
yeah, are there any tips for people that, or any words of advice from someone who's been there to
Mm.
kind of let them see that there is something
Yeah,
better? Yeah.
I'll say two things. In my book, my mantra is settle down, don't settle for.
Mm,
So this is something Jenny says to me in the beginning. Settle down, don't settle for. So my advice is whatever you want to settle, whatever settling down means to you, whether it's a new relationship, a new place to live, becoming a mother or a new job. So whatever that is, like do it and make sure you're being true to yourself. Don't just settle for second best. And it's not that Hank was second best in terms of
mm,
his personality, but I would have settled for his plans and his goals, not my own dreams. So I would say prioritize yourself and your goals and dreams and really dig deep and what are they and where do you envision yourself? So for example, I was 41 and when I thought about staying with Hank, I thought, okay, we're probably going to live in the same apartment for 10 more years because he hated change. He was just, and he hated to travel. So that was another thing. He hated to travel. He was afraid of flying. And I thought, okay, what I foresee is just this living in this, in a tunnel sort of, same job, same flat, same person, and day-to-day life will be comfortable and enjoyable, but
Mm.
no surprises, no real adventure. And I guess I was feeling like the adventurous side of me was going away. It was like leaving me, and I felt I used to be ripe for adventure, and that part of me was disappearing, and that was frightening. So I think it would be like, who are you? What do you want? And where do you see yourself? And and not in terms of career, but what kind of life do you see yourself in 5 and 10 years? Do you want to be a parent? Do you want a partner? Do you want to be living in a different place? And then really just think about that and focus on that and how you can get there. And ultimately, that's what I did. And it was really painful because I really was attached to Hank.
Mm.
And I loved his family and he loved mine. I mean, it was like a love fest. So it wasn't that he was abusive or anything. We got along well.
Mm.
So that in some way makes it even harder.
Yeah.
But I know that a lot of women or friends of mine, people I know, are in relationships that are abusive. So it's not just that they're not getting their goals, but they're constantly fighting, for their survival or fighting for their, mental well-being. And so that's a whole different situation. And I
Mm.
think that like true courage
Mm.
and you need a real support team behind you. And ultimately, like I confided in my parents and they were very helpful. But if you don't have a parent or someone like or a best friend, then seek counseling or really open up and really tell in a deep way what's bothering you and try to get people to help you
Mm.
because there's no shame in it at all. I mean,
Yeah.
you just it doesn't mean you made a bad decision. It just means that this is what happened and you just want to move on and pursue, take care of yourself. And I think that's really an important thing to do for everybody.
Yeah. Such great advice. Full
Oh, thank
goosebumps going on
you.
here. I love it.
Sometimes it takes a while to for it to really like sink in. And like I
Yeah.
said, I was 31 and when I hear stories of women who are much younger and facing this, and I just think, oh, you have years, really, you have years to sort it out and, don't worry, relax. And even
Mm.
if you're older too, I mean, my life has changed several times, different moves, different relationships. I've had several long-term relationships. I've had one marriage before this one. And, so it's,
Yeah.
that's just what happens. Life goes on.
Yeah.
And you have to think of where do you see yourself? And are you going to play a part in making that happen?
Mm. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I love that mantra, settle down, don't settle for. That's such an awesome mantra
Yeah, and
because,
I say it a lot through, yeah, because
yeah,
there were people I met and I just realized, oh, okay, well,
they're not
I
one
want,
I want to settle down with.
do I want to marry this person? Because there is a marriage proposal in the book, by the way,
Yeah.
in the middle of the story, a surprise one. And, and I had to really think, where do I see, and I realized this
Mm.
person wasn't for me. It wasn't the kind of lifestyle I wanted, or
Yeah.
and the person wasn't right. So
Yeah. And yeah, I really love, I mean, you talked about, before as well, that if you were to stay with Hank, that you would have, started growing a lot of resentment towards the
exactly,
relationship. And I
yes,
think sometimes we forget the future, that we have to keep walking this path with that person. And if we're already kind of going, it's probably not the lifestyle I want to keep going down. If you keep staying there, then you do build that. And that's when, and it's because you haven't put yourself and what you want first. And I just love that you've really just nailed it on the head, saying that, have a think, think about what you want to do and what your life wants to, you want your life to look like in the future. Because if you don't have that vision, then you're not going to make those changes.
exactly. And as you get older, the years seem to fly by even quicker. Like
Mm,
7, Hank didn't seem like 7 years, but suddenly it was 7 years. And I
yeah.
was 41 and I thought, oh my gosh, and I remember my father saying to me, Linda, you spent your childbearing years with Hank and like now you have to really think about what do you want, like not pressuring me, but just saying,
Yeah.
do you want to explore this issue or not? And he was right. He was really right about it. I just thought, okay, I really can't wait any longer. I need to think about this now. That was really the catalyst for me to leave Hank because of my age and probably if I was what 33, 34 when we met. So maybe if we had met even when I was in my 20s, we would have stayed together 10, 20 years, who knows,
Yeah.
But the way, I think the longer you're with someone, the harder it is to leave.
Yes.
And people also think, oh, he'll go into therapy or I'll go into therapy. We'll try to make it work. And then they don't. I've been in a situation like that. And so, and then the years just go by and then you start to build up this resentment, but you don't have to. You can change it. You can get out and just seek help and get support wherever you can. And there are people out there who want to help you.
Yeah.
They want you to be happy. They want to help you.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you took 6 months, but even if it takes, a year,
Yes,
if you're
absolutely.
taking the steps to work towards what you want, maybe it ends up that you do stay with that person, but at least you're working towards getting to where you want to be, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that.
Maybe you can even somehow compromise with that person, but Hank made it clear there was no compromising because you just can't compromise on having a child. There's no half child.
It's like, I'll take half of me.
So there was no way around it. So that made it very clear and easy for me. And we have a child together. We each had our own career. So I think it's different for everybody. And if you, for example, aren't settled in a career and you don't have much savings, or you have like 5 children and you're a stay-at-home mother. So there are all sorts of things that really make it much more difficult. So I was lucky in that way. I could just make a break, and it was painful. It was a heartache, but I realized for other people, they don't have this opportunity to just leave or maybe go to Europe,
Yeah.
But for me, it was, I was also always fascinated with Eastern Europe because of my roots and because of my love for Chopin and Liszt, and Eastern Europe. And so it was also like fulfilling a dream, and I worked there. So it wasn't like I just went and traveled. I worked, I became part of the community and the society for a while, and I studied Hungarian for a while. And it was really an adventure.
Yeah.
So it's really possible. And I hope my story can show an example that it is possible to do something like that. And it takes courage and like a supportive group of friends and family, but you can do it.
Yeah. I want to say, like, listening to you talk during all this time we've had together so far, you seem to have a really, great relationship with your parents, which, is just so beautiful to hear, that you can confide in them and, they give you great advice. And, it's just beautiful to hear that because a lot of times, I hear people have difficulties communicating with their parents, especially like my mum's generation. I mean, there would be no like communication, not in that way, where you can actually have a conversation. It's more like, I'm the parent, you're the child, and that's it. So it's really beautiful to hear that your parents have brought you up with this beautiful relationship as well. So I just wanted to mention that.
They both passed on. I'm really sorry to say. It was really, was devastating. But I'm like so grateful and for everything they've done for me. And like yesterday, as I mentioned, Giving Tuesday, thought about this story about my mother, and I thought, wow, like that she also inspired me to give too, and to think about others. And my dad was like that too. But my mother in this situation was the one, it was her idea. But yes, I understand, like not everyone has that relationship or closeness with the parent. So if you don't, then that's why I recommended a friend or even a counselor or someone at work you can talk to, a mentor who can help you work through it and talk through it. Because I just had this feeling, for example, I mentioned that I had been married before, and I was so miserable in that in that marriage. And I remember just thinking, like, I deserve better. I feel like there's another life out there for me. And I was once in the car with this person, and we were driving to a beach, and he was criticizing me, maybe the way I was driving, or maybe the way I looked out the window, or he was just very critical of me all the time. And when we got to the parking lot, I gazed out over the sea, and there were like probably about 10 people there frolicking on the beach and, having fun in the water, like maybe 5 couples, whatever. And I looked and I thought, that's where I want to be. I want to be with those people, not in the car with this guy. I want to be with those people, having fun and enjoying life. And a year later, I was not with those specific people. And not I was in another beach in New England with new friends. And this friend, Patrick, who I told you was sick, he had AIDS. He had introduced me to a whole network of people. And there I was on the beach. And I remember thinking, here I am a year later. Like, this was what I envisioned and this is what happened, but something simple, just being free on the beach. And that's where I was.
Yes, that's so beautiful.
So you don't have to even think about going to Europe. You could just think of, I will be, in my own place in a year, or I will be on a beach with my girlfriends, not having to worry about this other, this person or what he's doing, just to be free and you're inside. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I love that. It's just, you're just very clear with what you want, and then it just manifests into reality. And I think a lot of times, especially now, people are so busy, they don't even know what they want. So therefore, if you don't even know what you want, then how can you make it a reality, because you're not even thinking about what you want? So it's just so important to take that time out to do that,
Yeah. I think it's important because, like I said, if you don't, like, time really marches on. That's one thing I learned.
Yeah.
It's really important to have conversations with people like your parents or,
Yeah. Oh, Linda, I've just loved our conversation tonight. Well, it's daytime for you. I'm conscious of the time, and I, want to make sure that, I don't keep you. Just before we wrap up, I really love you to share with us, what's currently setting your soul on fire.
Oh, thank you for asking. I'm working on my memoir sequel, which is tentatively called Triptych, like the 3 parts of an altarpiece. And why I'm really enjoying it is because I'm going back in time to, my parents are very much in the story, and Angelica's back, and it's like early in my marriage. But actually it's when my husband and I confront a bunch of family crises and health issues. And we went on spiritual pilgrimages, and how we found healing and hope on these pilgrimages. And I'm so much missing that now during the pandemic, because we're not traveling at all. And it's been years since I've been on a pilgrimage. And so we went on these spiritual pilgrimages to Poland, and one was to Croatia and Bosnia-Herzegovina. And they were wonderful experiences, and I'm writing about them. And so just remembering that time and getting excited for more of these kinds of adventures of a spiritual nature,
I think when
writing about them, and sharing them.
Yeah, I think when that book comes out, you'll need to come on again and have a chat about that part of your love. That would be awesome. Because I mean, we've talked about your Odyssey of Love, and it's such an amazing journey. So, the spiritual side of things, I'm always up for that. So I would love to, talk to you when your book comes up, or whenever feels right.
This one's romantic. This is, like I said, spiritual healing. It's a different focus, but
so important.
It's great to remember. And especially now, if you feel like down about the pandemic and not mingling and meeting friends, it's good to remember, like, these times. So I'm grateful for that gift, that I can go back, because I wrote a lot of it already, because I wrote it while I was writing Odyssey. So
oh, 2 books at the same time. There you go.
Well, I'm a Gemini, so of course there have to be many projects.
Oh, I'm a Gemini too.
Are you really?
Yes.
Okay, so you're doing many things at once too.
I need to, or I go cuckoo.
my nature, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's been so great to see you, and thank you for having me again on your podcast. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank you so much, Linda. I just, loved our time together, and
it.
thank you for sharing your love and wisdom with us today. If people want to find out more about you or where they can get your books, where should they go?
Okay, my book is available on Amazon. It's as a Kindle and paperback. And my website is lindajamsen.com, and that's LINDAJAMSEN. So it's the
Awesome.
American without the Finnish, you know.
Yeah. I was saying,
word.
oh, you said Jämsén. What?
Yeah,
Jämsén.
actually, but yeah,
Yeah.
we can't use the,
Yeah.
so lindajamsen.com, that's my website.
Perfect. I'll have, all your details in the show notes so people can find you and buy your book.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you
Tiffany.
so much. I've just loved
Thank
our
you.
conversation, and
Okay.
I look forward to speaking to you again.
Okay. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.